Hello. Oh,
Sorry, I've
God.
got load shedding at the moment, so let me show you guys what it looks like with my camera on.
You
Hi,
look so good.
sorry. So yeah,
You look very
thank you.
mysterious.
Oh
Cool.
goodness. It's so nice to meet all of you. Yeah, it's my first time here today, so I'm a
Yeah.
bit nervous.
Where are you
I
from?
don't know what to expect, but
Where are you from, Nabila?
I'm from Joburg originally,
Okay.
but I work and studied in Pretoria. I just qualified as a vet last year. So I'm
Oh,
currently doing my ComServe year in Pretoria. Yeah.
excellent. We're so welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the family. We're all
Thank you so
ADHD. We're here,
much.
there, and everywhere. We
Oh,
like the air. We're everywhere.
It's lovely to meet you, Nabila.
you guys as well.
Yes, we've got
Mm.
Amanda in as well, and we've got Shamega. Welcome, guys.
Welcome, everybody. It's lovely to meet you all this evening, and welcome to the School of Life support group. We're probably going to, if I'm correct, Tracy, just give everybody a couple of minutes. We'll
Yes.
just wait a minute or two just to give some additional people a chance to join. But we're very, very happy to have you here.
True ADHD style, where we wait for everybody to join us. It's like a few minutes late because we are time blind and we need to make time in front of us. So it's all good. We're happy with that. And it's nice to have you guys with us. Thank you. And thank you, Coach Tash. It's really cool that you volunteered to do this. And I'm going to learn tonight too. So I'm really excited to be here. Load shedding, no load shedding. So I'm going to put my camera off just now because we are load shedding here. But we'll wait a few minutes more and let's see who joins us. Otherwise, we'll start. And as they come in, we'll just let them in, Tash.
Yeah, perfect. I'm just letting my husband know that I'm doing the ADHD support group tonight. Not that he comes bursting in.
So it's very much those who haven't been here before. So the School of Life ADHD coaches and life skills coaches, we teach skills. So it's very different to other life coaching where you do like goals and things like that. We do that, but it's very much about skill based, and especially because I'm ADHD, Tasha's ADHD, Bianca's ADHD and ASD, and we understand the struggles we've had in our lives. And using the skills really, really has improved our lives. So we really try to make the support group meeting and everything we do skill based. So at any time during the presentation, you want to put questions on that we can answer later, please feel free to. It's very interactive. And we really are here to help you in every practical way possible.
And I mean, tonight we've decided that we're talking, well, I've decided we're talking about ADHD and menopause, but, I'm going to leave time towards the end. So, don't feel that you can only ask questions related to that. It's a completely, this is a support group. So it's a completely open forum. So it might just be that the question that you're wondering about, somebody else has been wondering about, but has never thought to ask or something like that. So it's very informal, it's very casual, and whatever everyone feels like talking about is what we get to talk about in this session.
So I think, Tash, let's start, and then because we record these and we upload it to YouTube. So let's not wait. And if anybody wants to join afterwards, I'll let them in. So welcome to ADHD meeting, ADHD and menopause. The topic is tonight for March 2023. And we have Coach Tash, who's ADHD herself, who has ADHD kids, who's going to introduce herself doing it tonight. So thank you, Tash, and welcome, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much, Tracy. Yeah, so as Tracy says, I'm ADHD, but I'm also 51 and ADHD. So I come from that generation of where ADHD girls were not really diagnosed. There was a lot of money invested in research for ADHD in boys. But, the girls, they were normally the quieter type, and so it went undiagnosed. And it's only actually recently, within the last year, that I've understood that I'm ADHD. And at the same time as being ADHD, I am perimenopausal, menopausal. And I think for me, it was like, where does the ADHD start and stop? And where is it actually that now it is menopause? So the session is a very personal session for me. It's a lot of research that I've done myself that I wanted to share with everybody, because I think we don't talk about menopause very much. It's not something that, people talk about openly. So I don't think that when we hit that stage in our life, there's, an understanding of something that is completely natural and a part of our life. And sometimes I also think that there isn't enough support with regards to ADHD, which is why it's so great that we have this ADHD support group. So like I was saying earlier, this is what the topic is for tonight's conversation. But like we were saying, it's a support group. So if there's any questions about anything related to ADHD, you're more than welcome to ask them. Okay, so I'm going to kick off. And I think that's why I titled my talk tonight about, is it ADHD? Is it menopause? What is it? What's it? Long-term COVID? I mean, the brain fog is just so debilitating. And sometimes I'm so confused and unstructured that I'm not quite sure where it is all coming from or going to. So when we talk about menopause, it's a natural transition that occurs in every woman's life. And, it kind of starts to happen around the 45 mark. And you go through the different phases of perimenopause, where menopause is starting and stopping and starting and stopping until you go into menopause. And then obviously there's the postmenopausal stage as well. And there's a number of symptoms that happen around about this time. There's the hot flushes, the night sweats, the mood swings and irritability. And for women who have ADHD, menopause can exacerbate these systems, and then, which creates challenges. But, for me, I think it also, like I was saying, I wasn't quite sure what was menopause symptoms, what's ADHD symptoms, which is why I wanted to do this talk. So we're going to be looking, in this chat, we're going to be looking at what is menopause and what is ADHD, and then understanding the relationship between the symptoms of menopause and ADHD. We're also going to be looking at the common symptoms of menopause and ADHD, and the challenges in diagnosing ADHD in menopausal women, and the impact that ADHD has on menopausal symptoms. And then we're going to talk about learning strategies to manage ADHD symptoms during menopause. As Tracy was saying, we're very skills focused here at the School of Life. So it's all very much about understanding and then having the skills and the tools that we need in order to live as effectively as we possibly can. And then we're going to see, what do we need to create a personalized plan for managing our menopause and ADHD symptoms. And I think I've got a duplication there, and the challenges, which I've said already, of diagnosing ADHD in menopausal women. So there you go, guys. It's an ADHD thing. Hey, see, I had a duplication and I didn't notice it. We're not big on that attention to detail. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free just to put your hand up. I can't see, but Tracy will be able to let me know, and then we can just deal it as we go along. There's no formality or anything like that. So just, if anything comes to mind, just pop the question in there. So like we were saying, menopause is a natural thing that happens to all women, and it's the time in your life where your ovaries stop producing eggs, and that means that the levels of estrogen and progesterone in your body, those levels decline. Okay, so you have the perimenopausal stage, which I mentioned earlier, where you kind of have menopausal symptoms, and then it's back to normal as your body moves towards menopause. So it's not something that happens all of a sudden overnight. It's kind of happens in different doses until you actually find that, you know, you are actually in full-blown menopause. So it's normally characterized by regular periods. And then menopause is defined as when you haven't had a period for 12 consecutive months. And then you've got the postmenopause, which will last the rest of a woman's life. And the symptoms of menopause may or may not continue, but you start to maybe become more at risk for things like osteoporosis or heart conditions. And, you know, menopause can occur naturally as you know, from aging, but it could also be induced by surgery. You know, if anybody's had a hysterectomy, or if there's chemotherapy, they've had cancer treatment. So menopause can also be brought on from certain medical conditions as well. And then when we look at ADHD, so ADHD is very different in that it is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects children and adults. It's not something that you grow out of, which is a previous myth or misconception that was around. And it's often hereditary. And there's different types of ADHD. We have the inattentive type, which is the daydreamers. And this is, you know, the people who have difficult paying attention and stay focused on tasks, but they don't have that impulsivity or that hyperactivity that is so often associated with ADHD. So that is more the hyperactive impulsive type. And these are the people that have difficulty sitting still. They might fidget or squirm, you know, talk excessively, and they can act impulsively without thinking about the consequences of their actions. So a thought comes into the mind and immediately it's acted on. So whether it's like, I've just thought something and now I have to immediately speak about it, or I've just thought of something and I'm going to immediately do it. You know, so you find that a lot, like with interrupting people. You know, I've got a thought, I have to tell you now. And then the third type is the combined type, which is what a lot of ADHDers are. You know, they might in certain circumstances show the hyperactive impulsive side, but they might also exhibit the signs of the inattentive type as well. And so it's important to note that ADHD presents differently in different people. So there isn't a, you know, one tool fits all or one medication type fits all. So, you know, ADHD does need to be diagnosed by a medical professional. And often it is diagnosed in childhood, but, you know, when you speak to people who are from my generation, you know, often it was missed just because of the factors I was talking about earlier. And then these people are diagnosed later in life. So when we look at understanding the relationship between menopause and the ADHD symptoms, you know, research does say that there looks like there is a relationship, and that the women's ADHD experience of menopause might be exasperated, and that they might feel the symptoms of menopause a lot more acutely than, say, non-ADHDers. And a lot of this is to do with hormone changes in the body that will affect the neurotransmitters in the brain, and particularly the dopamine. So estrogen is known to play a role in regulating dopamine. And during menopause, when these estrogen levels decline, it results in a decrease of dopamine. And so that can either worsen the symptoms of ADHD or can affect the medication. And it can also affect the way that the ADHD symptoms present. And then a lot of the symptoms of menopause overlap with ADHD. And I think that that's what I was talking about earlier when I was saying, you know, which is it? And things such as the mood swings, irritability, and the sleep disturbances, you know, could manifest under either the ADHD or the menopause. So you'll find that ADHDers and people in menopause might have difficulty with sleep routines, and then that can further complicate the management of the ADHD symptoms in an ADHDer. So it's so important for women who are approaching menopausal age or perimenopausal to be aware of what menopause is, how does it impact their bodies, so that they're with that awareness. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later when we look at the tips for how we manage this. So just that awareness, because that awareness allows us to act thoughtfully and to use the skills that we learn either in coaching or otherwise in sessions like this. But if your menopause symptoms are impacting your life negatively, it is a very good idea to speak to your healthcare provider, whether it's your gynae or your GP, and just, to share what you're experiencing, because there are a number of treatments out there. You might choose to go with the hormone therapy, which is very, very effective. If you have, like me, I have a history of cancer in my family. And so I've chosen not to go onto the hormone therapy. And, I'm managing it with more natural type of methods, which is not hugely effective at the moment with what I'm doing. So the other thing that I've researched that works apparently very, very well is acupuncture. So I have my first session of acupuncture scheduled for next week for this. I have done acupuncture in the past for other things, but I'm really interested to see how that could support me, because I've found that although my menopausal symptoms have been under control, I would say, for the last few months, that all of a sudden we have a bit of a spike at the moment, and I can definitely feel the heat wherever I am. So what are the common symptoms of menopause and ADHD? Okay, so menopause, you'll find things like the hot flushes. You're sitting somewhere all of a sudden having a conversation, and all of a sudden you feel like, I don't know, someone put an industrial sized hairdryer on you and you're just burning up from inside. All the night sweats. You have irregular periods, for vagina dryness, mood swings, insomnia, sleep disturbances, fatigue, weight gain, loss of libido, and memory lapses or difficulty of concentrating. Okay. Whereas with ADHD, you're looking at inattention or difficulty in focusing, hyperactivity, impulsivity, poor organization or time management, forgetfulness or absent-mindedness, restlessness or fidgeting, and difficulty following through on tasks, procrastination, and poor impulse control, emotional dysregulation or mood swings. So you can see where the overlap starts to form. On the one hand, for menopause, you might have the mood swings, whereas on the other hand, for ADHD, you will have the emotional dysregulation, which also appears as mood swings. And then similarly, under menopause, you might have memory lapses or difficulty concentrating, which again is another common symptom of ADHD. Okay. And so the symptoms do overlap, but there's also symptoms which are very particular to each situation. Okay, and because of the overlap of the symptoms, it can make it quite difficult to diagnose ADHD in menopausal women. So the overlapping symptoms makes it difficult to diagnose ADHD in menopausal women. But then it's also the lack of awareness. As we were saying earlier, there's a lot of misconceptions about ADHD. People think it's a childhood disorder. And also there's also the thing that it didn't get diagnosed. In this day and age, people are a lot more aware about what ADHD is. And a lot more kids and people are getting the diagnosis that they need and the support that they need. But there's still a whole lot of people that are missing out on that diagnosis and not getting the support that they need. And then you have the hormonal fluctuations. And with the hormonal fluctuations comes those different levels of estrogen and progesterone, which can impact the mood and cognitive function. And then that can make it difficult to diagnose the ADHD, because it could either exacerbate the ADHD symptoms or mimic the disorder, and that could make things tricky. So I think it's just important, and what I wanted from this session is just for everybody, to create that awareness so that, women can take this away with them. And if it's something that they feel they might be experiencing, when they speak to their healthcare provider, they can, mention it and, drive the conversation in such a way that, is it ADHD? Is it menopause? That both of those are considered so that the correct treatment can be provided. And I think that I've covered a lot of this, where we're just talking about how it mimics, how the menopause can mimic the ADHD symptoms. And I mean, it can even go as far as things like the depression and the anxiety that also comes with menopausal women, but can also come out of ADHD. So looking at the impact of ADHD on menopausal symptoms is not very well researched. There have been a couple of studies that have been done, which does suggest that women with ADHD will experience more severe menopausal symptoms than women without. And one example of this is the study that was done and published in the Journal of Women's Health, and where they did report that women with ADHD reported a higher frequency and severity of menopausal symptoms. But there's still a lot more research that could be done. It's quite a new topic of research, so there has been a couple of studies, but overall more research is needed to fully understand the impact of ADHD on menopausal symptoms. But I think even with these initial research results, I think it's interesting to understand that are more acute than maybe in somebody who does not have ADHD. So now we come to the interesting bit and the important bit. And what are the strategies for managing ADHD symptoms during menopause? And now remember, everybody is different. So here are some generalized strategies. And some of the suggestions might be that, definitely the number one thing I think is to talk to your doctor. And, explain about your symptoms, explain how you're feeling. You can be open and honest. If you're being a witch to your family and your husband because you're irritable, it's a safe space. You're allowed to tell him that. I denied blatantly to my husband. I'm like, no, I don't know what you mean. But, your doctor's there to support you, and, they have all the medical expertise to make the right recommendations based on what, you've told them. Having a routine is critical, because that works so well in managing your ADHD symptoms. And it also then will help you to manage your menopausal symptoms, by having a good routine with a good sleep schedule, healthy eating, time for exercise, and other daily activities will then help you to manage the symptoms of both the menopause and the ADHD and help you to feel better. And to break tasks down into smaller steps. It can feel overwhelming. You've got this brain fog, or, your ADHD symptoms are like making it seem too complicated to complete a task. And large tasks do feel completely overwhelming. We don't know where to start. And so it's to take those tasks, look at them, and break them up into their different components, and then to start with the smaller task. And once that's completed, move on to the next task, because that becomes more manageable. And then once we achieve on the smaller task, it gives us that motivation, because that win gives us the motivation to go on to the next piece of the puzzle until we've completed the task. So important things that you can do if you have ADHD and you are in menopause, just in order to help manage your ADHD symptoms, is, you can use visual aids, calendars, to-do lists. I have a desk calendar, which it's great because it's right here on my desk when I'm working during the day, and I can just write down things as they come to mind. Here we go, hot flash. And they come to mind, to-do lists, so that you can prioritize your to-do list. You can categorize it. There's a whole lot of different methods, but so whatever works for you. But it's all about making it visual, so that it's not sitting in your head, because it's easy for us to forget. So on your phone, make use of technology, do reminders on your phone, have alarms that go off on your phone so that it reminds you to, where you need to be and what you need to be doing at that moment. Practice mindfulness and relaxation techniques. This is really, really great for just centering the mind and, creating that calmness and removing the stress and the anxiety. You can do deep breathing or yoga. But, whether it's meditation, yoga, Pilates that you're doing, it all helps to reduce stress and improve your focus. We spoke about staying physically active because regular exercise will help improve your focus and concentration, and it decreases stress and improves your well-being. And that healthy diet, that balanced diet, if you have a diet that is full of, great food like fruit and vegetables, that can regulate your mood and energy levels. And also, maybe cutting out on very processed food with all the added E numbers and colorants will also help with that. Sleep is so underrated. I don't know if it's because we get used to so little sleep when we have very little children or what it is, but sleep is so important for good cognitive function and emotional well-being. So create a schedule. If you need to, set an alarm to go to bed because, it's, give yourself, your body that time to rest so that you can, feel great when you wake up in the morning. We've spoken about the technology, but there are a lot of apps and digital tools that are available that will help with organization and time management and productivity. And seek support. There's support groups like, our ADHD support group. If you wanted to, you could talk to the therapist, about managing the emotional and psychological aspects of ADHD during menopause. But, also you've got your girly friends, set up a girls' dinner and, talk about what's going on. It's amazing, that once we talk about something that's going on with us, if we keep it inside, it can feel quite heavy. Whereas if we talk about it, all of a sudden that it becomes lighter. And, our friends or the support group or the therapist, might have tips of things that we haven't thought of before that actually make a big difference and really helps us to manage our symptoms that we're experiencing at that time. So one of the things that is great to do is to create a personal plan for just managing menopause and ADHD symptoms. And, everybody's different. And so that's why, different strategies will work for different people. But one of the things you can do is just assess your symptoms. Start to take note of the ADHD symptoms that you experience. And then how does that feel during menopause? What are your menopausal symptoms? It will be things like, and this is very, very true for me, forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, impulsivity, irritability, it's all of those kinds of things. And, and they have a huge impact. When you read about it and you see it on a slide like this, you think, oh, forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, how serious is that? But, it becomes quite debilitating, when you're in a work environment and you're in a meeting and, there's information that other people have at their fingertips just because they remember. And, you, because of your ADHD, which is compounded by the menopause, are struggling to make those connections. So it can be quite debilitating and also cause quite a lot of anxiety. So it's great if you assess your symptoms and actually write them down. And when you feel them, you'll start to maybe see a bit of a pattern that will help you to deal with that. And then you can identify the triggers. What exacerbates your symptoms? Is it stress? Is it the lack of sleep? Are there possibly the hormonal changes going on? So that will help you to look at those triggers. And then you have a chance to set some goals. Like, what is it that you want to achieve? How is it that you want to feel? Like, is it that you want to, see your doctor and, come up with a plan in order to manage your symptoms? in such a way that, you know, you can lead a more effective life? Do you want to set up an exercise plan? Because, or maybe you want something that is a little bit more on the mindfulness side, you know, it's exercise in the form of yoga, but at the same time, it's going to give you the mindfulness that you need in order to center and manage your anxiety and the stress and irritability that you're feeling. So yeah, you can brainstorm strategies, you know, speak to your friends, speak to your coach, speak to your doctor, and brainstorm the strategies until you come up with something and a plan that you think will work for you. And, you know, the plan doesn't have to be perfect. You know, it's a start, because once you have the plan and you start to act on that plan, you can also see what is working and what isn't working for you, and you can adjust and tweak the plan accordingly. And I think that, you know, especially for us ADHDers, is that having something written down and having something physical that we're working with rather than sitting in our heads makes it so much easier for us to manage going through menopause. So, and then what you can do is you can prioritize your strategies. So when you look at the different strategies, you find the ones that are the most feasible and effective for you. And then you create your action plan. And these are specific steps that you're going to take and implement. As I was saying earlier, you're going to implement an exercise plan. You're maybe going to start to eat a bit healthier. You want to see a doctor so that you can see whether, you know, what the medication options are for you. You know, you might decide not to take any of them, but at least you have that information. And then you monitor your progress and seek support. You know, there's menopausal groups out there, there's ADHD groups out there, none of them as good as ours, obviously. But you know, so, and there's therapists, there's so much support out there that if you go to look, we're so lucky to live in an age of, you know, where we have that social media and we have that online availability of information and support that we can always, you know, if we reach out, we'll find, you know, a group that would be able to, you know, connect, that we would feel that we can connect with to provide the support that we need. So yeah, and just to remember that your plan is your plan. Everybody is different, and, you know, different preferences, different needs. So it really is for you to create the plan that is right for you. And just a tip to also be a little bit patient and flexible. You know, this is new, you know, when we are going through menopause and with our ADHD, it's a new phase. It's something different. You know, maybe our meds don't work in the same way if we are in meds, or maybe our coping strategies that have always worked for us now need a little bit of tweaking. You know, so just, you know, play with it a little bit and keep your sense of humor, and yeah, be patient and flexible. And so then, you know, often, you know, I was in the UK in December, and it was so interesting to me because there was so much talk about about menopause, and just creating that awareness about menopause, because every woman goes through menopause. And, you know, it's like, if you think of how long people are living now, it's kind of in the middle of your life. I mean, you know, my Omi, she lived to be 102. So, you know, I'm only just middle age now, guys. So, you know, and it's about creating that awareness and creating that education. And what was so interesting to me was that this awareness and education not only was helping the women who were going through it and experiencing it, but it was so beneficial to the men. You know, you saw conversations about how could men support women who are going through menopause in the work environment, you know, which is something that is completely alien here. I've never heard anything like that happening here. And I think, you know, that's why I put the slide in, because, you know, for us as women, you know, we will talk about how would we support each other. But I think it's a wider conversation for society as a whole. You know, it's like, women are such an integral part of the workforce, of the family, of society. And, you know, how do we support women who are going through menopause and maybe have ADHD and their symptoms are exasperated? And I think what most importantly, it's about education. It's about that information being there and being available. so that, you know, the people who are going through it can understand it, the people that our colleagues that we work with can understand it, the people that we're in relationships with can understand it, so that we have that greater understanding in society. And then the other thing is to encourage self-care. I think we so often are so busy trying to support everything and everybody around us, and it's so important that we practice self-care. And that self-care is about being kind to ourselves. It's also about being structured with regards to our exercise, our healthy eating, our stress reduction techniques, and, you know, good sleep, which is so important for both of the conditions. And yeah, we spoke about the support networks. You know, the support networks are out there, they're available, and whether they are formalized as in proper structured support groups like this, or if they're more informal, just with your girly friends or your girly family, that support is there and it's available. We could look at workplace accommodations. So there's definitely for people who have ADHD, you can speak to your work and look for the accommodations that you need in order to support, you know, your ADHD. Menopause is maybe a lot newer in our environment, and I'm not sure, like, that would probably be quite unique to each work environment as to how educated they are with regards to the impact of menopause on women and what kind of support there is with regards to that. Then there's also the conversation around medication management. So, you know, it's just to work with healthcare providers and ensure that the medications that are prescribed for ADHD or menopausal symptoms are appropriate and that they don't interact negatively. You know, and I think that that's about being very open with your healthcare provider about, you know, what medication you are on, what are your symptoms that you are experiencing, so that they can support you in the right way. And the lifestyle adjustments, and I think we have kind of spoken about that with regards to, you know, the health and wellness and taking care and self-care, but also just lifestyle adjustments within kind of providing a support framework around yourself, whether it's organizational tools that, you know, are available as various apps. I'm, like I said earlier, make huge use of my alarm on my phone. You know, alarms to put the kids to bed, alarms to remind me to do all kinds of things, because I do find that my memory is severely impacted. Yeah, so I think overall it's important to be patient and supportive, because I think everybody is learning. You know, it's the women who are experiencing this are learning and adjusting to the changes in their life. And I think society as a whole is learning and adjusting, because they're learning about ADHD, that information isn't readily available often, and also the conversation about menopause isn't very open and available in society. So yeah, so some final thoughts from me are that menopause is a crazy time in a woman's life. And while life with the ADHD can also feel complex and challenging, you know, coaching does bring increased awareness and skills development, which can ease these challenges. And even if you just Google and look online for the different support kind of technologies and apps and things that are out there and have a little sift around, you know, you might find something that really does click for you and really makes a big difference in the way that, you know, you function and the way that you manage things. So yeah, so that was just my chat that I wanted to share with you guys with regards to ADHD and menopause. Like I said, I wasn't going to take up the whole time because I wanted to leave some time for conversation and for us to be able to share with each other, because I think that that's where most of the learning comes from, is by us sharing our experiences with each other, and in that way supporting each other.
Thank you so much, Tash. That was amazing. It was really, really interesting. Would anyone like to ask any questions?
Hi, Natasha. Thank you for all of that. I wanted to ask you about the acupuncture. When you go for acupuncture, then what do you actually say? You know,
What do you say?
yeah, because
Yeah.
you're saying that acupuncture actually works with the did you say it works with the ADHD or with the menopause specifically?
So I think it's with the menopause specifically was why I'm going on Monday. It's just
Okay.
with regards to the menopausal symptoms. So I have done acupuncture in the past, and there's different types of acupuncture. And so my acupuncturist always tells me off because he says you only come when there's a problem. And he says it's like having a car. So you shouldn't only take your car to the garage when you've got a problem and it's coughing and spluttering. He says, which is the only time you ever come to see me for acupuncture. He said you should be coming generally, like periodically, just to make sure that you have optimal wellness and health in your body. But I'm very lazy about that kind of stuff, and I'm terrible because I do wait until it is actually necessary to go to acupuncture. But I have to admit, acupuncture in the past has helped me with a lot of different things, and I'm a bit annoyed with myself that I didn't think of it myself. That I had to research it and find it online that, acupuncture helps with, help with this. I mean, it's a very established form of medicine, alternative, to your Western medicine. But, the acupuncturist uses acupuncture and the Chinese herbs. So I'll be able to tell you after Monday what he said, but my plan is to go tell him what my symptoms are and how it's impacting me and what I'm struggling with, and to take it from there.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Any more questions? So this will be available on YouTube. I'm going to upload it. Thank you so much, Tash. I learned a lot, as always. And we always do. We can learn so much from each other.
Sorry.
Okay, Bianca, go.
Can I ask Dash a question, please?
Sure.
Dash, in your research, did you come across PMDD and how that plays out in menopause?
No. What is PMDD?
So PMDD is PMS on steroids, and it
Okay.
affects only individuals that are neurodiverse. So I'm just sitting here and wondering if everything you're saying is exacerbated by ADHD, then I think a few of us are going to get institutionalized.
How weak, Bianca? It's coming.
But that's the thing, we have Hell Week prior to menopause. So what is going to be on menopause when you're going through menopause? Then what then?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's interesting, that the research, that there's been a couple of studies done which, did show that there's definitely ADHDers, women do experience the menopausal symptoms more acutely, but it's still very much in the beginning of that type of research, that there's still more research, that needs to be done on this. But yeah, I mean, Bianca, I think you're absolutely right. I think we have a lot to look forward to, hey?
Okay, so let's just hope and pray South Africa follows suit, because currently there are countries thinking about giving you sick leave for when you are in your menstrual cycle. So maybe they should give sick leave for menopause as well.
Itchy, bitchy, scratchy, that whole little thing that goes around.
Yeah.
I think the world will be safer.
Thank you,
But
Tash.
I mean, an example, that happened to me recently. So, at work, we have an end of a year performance appraisal, and at the end of the year, we kind of assess all the finances and we check what the delivery was like against what was projected and the finances associated with that. And I got pulled into at the end of the day, a 5-minute meeting by the head of finance. I just want to check something with you, which ended up being an hour-long meeting of going through a whole lot of things step by step that I wasn't prepared for, that I hadn't had time to prepare for. And so I called in the project managers to answer the questions on each of their projects. And then one of the things that I got marked down on my performance appraisal and rated as an off standard was the fact that I didn't have a handle on my area. And now it's not that I don't have a handle on the area. And when I questioned it, it was because in that session, that impromptu session, I couldn't answer the questions that were being asked. And the reason I couldn't answer the questions were because I wasn't prepared for the meeting. So I didn't have my visual aids available to me in order for me to utilize. And from the brain fog, I couldn't bring that information out to my fingertips to verbalize it and communicate it. And so now everybody thinks I'm stupid. When in actual fact, there's something completely different going on for me than there was for anybody else in that meeting.
Exactly. That's the problem.
And, and then it goes back to, what we spoke about in one of our previous support group, sessions, and that we also did with Brilli when we did the support group session with Brilli, is that, do you declare, if you have ADHD in the workplace? Because, it's still like that understanding isn't there because I haven't declared, and when I contacted the disability office, as to find out what is available in terms of support, it was very vague. Well, you need to say what you want. You need to ask for what you want. Like, what do you want? And I get that everybody's different. But it just seemed very vague to me. And yeah.
So how have you bounced back from that, Tash? Because I think that's the most important thing, is how you can actually bounce back when things like this happen.
So I must admit, it has made me reconsider about whether I would want to kind of log something with the disability office so that I could say, that, I have ADHD and these are the kinds of things that I need to support me. I need visual aids. And so when you set up an impromptu meeting, I actually need notice so that I can get my correct spreadsheets for that meeting, with what the target is. So that's a thought that's more real for me now than it's ever been before. And I think for me, it's about maybe just because because I have ADHD, my organization is not great. So now there's the impromptu meeting. So I can't bring up the spreadsheet at the drop of a hat because it's not organized in such a way that I can find it immediately because I've gone and filed it somewhere, which I think is clearly logical until I need it at the drop of a hat. So I've set up a folder of where I've copied things like that into, that if there ever is anything, that I can just access this folder, which is my go-to folder where this kind of information is kept. I've also changed the way that I meet and collect information. So I meet more regularly with the project managers and I write everything down so that I do have a more accurate information at my fingertips. And then emotionally, how I bounce back, I have to be honest, I was quite bitter about the whole thing. And I think it's about the RSD doesn't help, So, somebody can make a comment that is just a comment. But of course, I take it to mean that I'm completely incompetent at my job. And it's to manage that negative self-talk and, to look at it and say, well, is that realistic or is it not realistic? Firstly, and of course it's not realistic. And then the second thing is what that person said valid or wasn't it valid? And actually what the person said was valid. Not that I didn't have a handle on things, but at that particular moment, I couldn't give them the information that they were looking for. And so, and that wasn't, and that's what the person was saying, rather than I'm completely incompetent. And I think the other thing which I know for sure now is that when I do my performance goals for the year, is to make sure that they're very smart and that they're measurable and realistic and time-based, so that it's easier to, when you're having that conversation, to have an objective conversation rather than the conversation being vague and go, but I meant, and they're like, yes, but it says, and, you know, it's open to different interpretation.
Well done. There's lots of growth there. Uncomfortable, but growth.
Yeah, I know.
Well done.
There's lots of uncomfortable growth going on, hey?
But always, that's how we move, that's how we grow, that's how we progress in life. So well done, Tash. You really did well there. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Tash. It was really informative and so grateful for that. And we look forward to seeing you next month in April, ADHD support group meeting. So from me, goodbye.
Yes. So if there's any subject that anyone would like to cover in particular, please just let us know. Provisionally, I'm thinking of doing about how to manage the holidays, because it's before the Easter holidays.
Oh, sounds amazing. That sounds good. Thank you, Tash.
Cool. Thanks everybody.
Guys. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you so much, guys. This was really, really cool.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. We really enjoyed having you here. And you must
I
feel
know it was a bit quiet, but I will definitely, maybe the next one. I think I'm quite keen for that holiday topic, because I definitely am victim to the holiday blues way too often. So yeah.
I think that's it, you know. So kind of how I've designed that session is really around, you know, tips for ADHDers, how to manage the holidays, you know, the adults, tips for parents, you know, and then tips for kids themselves, and then also tips for the people in, you know, the ADHDers' lives, you know, because I think not all of us face the holidays in the same way. You know, some people are super excited, you know, because it's no work, and other people are just filled with dread because it's huge family commitments and, you know, organizations of big meals and that type of thing. And I think it's just very much about being aware of what it can mean to different people, and then what are the tips, the coping strategies and the skills that we can put in place to help ourselves to deal with that kind of thing. So that's what I was thinking about.
Love it. Thank you.
That sounds really good, yeah.
Sounds awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening. Thanks, Tash.
Thanks, everybody.
Nice
Cheers.
to see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.